Commander Vex Thornblade had exactly three things keeping him from a complete nervous breakdown: military discipline, a stubborn refusal to admit defeat, and the faint hope that the universe would stop laughing at him long enough for him to solve this mess. Spoiler alert, the universe was not cooperating. He stood in the observation deck of Coalition Station Artemis, staring through reinforced glass at the most expensive piece of technology in known space. The Starlight engine hung suspended in its containment field like a massive crystalline heart, pulsing with soft blue light that would have been beautiful if it wasn't currently ruining his life. 6 months, 47 species, 238 pilots, each more qualified than the last, 0 successes. Commander, perhaps we should try the Veluvian candidates again. Kip, his Flibian engineer, wrung his three-fingered hands together. A bead of luminescent sweat rolled down his bulbous forehead. Flibians secreted a bioluminescent substance when stressed, which meant Kip had been glowing like a nightlight for the better part of half a year. The Veluvians, Vex said slowly, his mandibles clicking in barely controlled frustration, lasted 4 seconds before the engine expelled them from the cockpit. The last one is still in medical, having his dignity reconstructed. Right, yes, of course. Silly suggestion. More glowing, Kip was approaching flashlight territory. The door hissed open and Dr. Millicent Farnsworth swept in carrying 3 datapads, a coffee mug that said, "I'm not arguing, I'm just explaining why I'm right," and what appeared to be half a sandwich. She was human, which meant she was from one of those adorable backwater planets that had only joined the Coalition 15 years ago, and she had the annoying habit of being correct about things when everyone else was wrong. "Gentlemen, I've reviewed the data from yesterday's attempt with the Kryn pilot." She took a bite of her sandwich. Still talking, the engine didn't just reject him, it played a sound frequency that translates roughly to "get out of my personal space, you absolute walnut." Walnut. Vex's translator struggled with the term. It's a nut, from Earth. The point is, the engine is actively insulted by our pilot selections. Dr. Farnsworth dropped her datapads on the table with a clatter. "We've been approaching this wrong. We keep sending it the best pilots in the galaxy, people with decades of experience and perfect neural compatibility scores. But the engine doesn't want perfect, it wants something else." "What could be better than perfect?" Kip asked, now sweating enough to leave puddles. "I don't know, but if we don't figure it out in the next 2 weeks, the Coalition is scrapping the project. They're going to take apart the most advanced propulsion system ever created because we QA find someone it likes." She pointed at the engine through the glass. "That thing has preferences, personality. It's not just sentient, it's picky. And we're running out of time." Vex felt his career prospects dying in real time. He'd spent 20 years clawing his way up the military ranks. This assignment was supposed to be his triumph, the achievement that would cement his legacy. Instead, he was going to be remembered as the commander who couldn't match a pilot to a spaceship. The universe, he decided, had a terrible sense of humor. He had no idea how right he was. Jake Murphy had 3 rules for a good life. Keep your head down, don't volunteer for anything, and never ever work day shift. Night shift was perfect, quiet, peaceful. No crowds of scientists arguing about quantum mechanics in the hallways. Just him, his mop bucket, and his carefully curated playlist of Earth classics from the 2090s. Tonight's selection, Stardust Memories by the Cosmic Drift. Jake hummed along as he pushed his cleaning cart down Corridor 7, which was supposed to be off-limits, but his supervisor had terrible organizational skills and kept giving him the wrong access codes. He'd learned to just smile and clean wherever the doors opened. The song hit the chorus, and Jake hummed louder, adding a little harmony. He'd been in a freight crew before this, back when he thought adventure was appealing. Turns out, adventure mostly meant long hours, terrible pay, and that one time his captain decided to take a shortcut through an asteroid field and Jake spent 6 hours convinced he was going to die. The incident, his therapist called it. Jake called it the reason I became a janitor. He rounded the corner into what looked like a maintenance bay, huge space, lots of catwalks, and in the center, something that made him stop humming mid. It was gorgeous, a massive crystalline structure that seemed to shift colors as he watched, suspended in midair like someone had frozen a piece of a star. Jake had no idea what it was, but it was definitely above his pay grade. He should leave. That was the smart thing, but the acoustics in here were amazing, and the song was hitting the bridge. And Jake had never been great at smart things. He started humming again, louder this time, letting his voice bounce off the walls. The engine woke up. Later, when the security team was yelling and Dr. Farnsworth was laughing hysterically, and Commander Vex looked like he'd seen a ghost, They would explain that the Starlight engine had been dormant for months, completely inactive except for minimal life support. A very expensive, very complicated paperweight. But when Jake Murphy, night shift janitor, hummed the Bridge of Stardust memories in its presence, the engine blazed to life like someone had plugged in the sun. Blue light flooded the bay. The hum of power resonated through the floor, and then, impossibly, the engine hummed back. Not the mechanical whir of a machine, but an actual melodic response, harmonizing with Jake's tune. With the actual Jake dropped his mop. Alarms shrieked. Doors slammed open. A squad of security personnel poured in with weapons drawn, followed by a glowing Kip who looked like he might achieve enlightenment through sheer panic, and then Commander Vex who skidded to a stop and stared at Jake like he'd just sprouted wings. Dr. Farnsworth arrived last, out of breath, and immediately started laughing. Not polite chuckling, full-body wheezing laughter that made her double over. "It's the janitor," Vex said, his voice strangled. "The engine is responding to our night shift janitor. I'm sorry." "What?" Jake looked around wildly. "I'm just cleaning. I didn't touch anything. I swear, whatever's happening, it's not my fault." The engine pulsed brighter, and played back Jake's melody with what could only be described as enthusiasm. Dr. Farnsworth wiped tears from her eyes. "Oh, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. 6 months of searching the galaxy for the ideal pilot, and she chooses the guy with a mop." Jake squeaked. "The engine, Starlight engine, meet Jake. What's your last name?" "Murphy, Jake Murphy." "Can someone please explain why the giant glowing thing is singing at me?" Kip had achieved new levels of luminescence. "Commander, this is unprecedented. The neural pattern compatibility readings are off the scale. The engine hasn't shown this level of engagement with any candidate." Vex looked at Jake, then at the engine, then at Jake again. Then he did something that probably violated about 15 military protocols. He put his face in his hands and laughed. Not happily. The laugh of a man whose entire worldview had just been shattered by a janitor with a decent humming voice. "Mr. Murphy," he finally said, "how would you like a promotion?" The Coalition's formal compatibility testing facility was designed to intimidate. 40-foot ceilings, observation decks filled with officials from a dozen species, and enough monitoring equipment to scan someone's breakfast choices from 3 days ago. Jake sat in the pilot's chair, surrounded by blinking lights and screens he couldn't read, wondering if it was too late to go back to mopping floors. "Just relax, Mr. Murphy." Dr. Farnsworth's voice crackled through the cut. "This is simply a standard neural compatibility assessment. There are 17 ambassadors watching me," Jake muttered. "There's nothing standard about this." Vex's voice cut in, professional and clipped. "Begin Protocol 1. Candidate will initiate basic neural handshake sequence." Jake stared at the control panel. "Which button is that?" Silence from the observation deck. The kind of silence that screamed, "Oh no." "The blue one," Kip whispered frantically. "Top left." "No, your other left." "That's yellow." "Blue, blue." Jake pressed what he hoped was the right button. The engine flickered, made a sound like a disappointed sigh, and went dark. Attempt 1, failure. 3 hours later, Jake had failed 7 more tests. He'd accidentally told the engine that its creators were probably ugly, hit what turned out to be the emergency vent button, and somehow managed to start a feedback loop that made everyone's translators speak only in ancient Krollik's poetry. "This is a disaster," someone muttered in the observation deck. "The human has the technical competency of a concussed Glorbian." "Hey, I heard that," Jake called out. "And for the record, I don't even know what a Glorbiant is, but I'm sure they're very nice when they're not concussed." Vex looked like he was aging in real time. "Mr. Murphy, perhaps we should wait." Dr. Farnsworth held up a hand. "Jake, forget the protocols. Just ... Talk to her like you did in the maintenance bay. Talk to her. She's a spaceship engine. She's a sentient being who's been poked and prodded by strangers for 6 months. Just be yourself." Jake felt every eye in the facility on him. Being himself had never seemed like a particularly valuable skill, but at this point, what did he have to lose? He leaned back in the chair, closed his eyes, and started humming. Not anything special, just a lullaby his grandmother used to sing when he couldn't sleep. Simple melody, soft and low. The engine stirred. Jake kept humming, adding words this time. "Hush, now, don't you cry. Stars are watching from the sky. Close your eyes and drift away. We'll fly together another day." The engine didn't just respond, she sang. The sound that filled the testing facility was impossible to describe. Harmonics that shouldn't exist, melodies that made hardened warriors openly weep, frequencies that bypassed the ear entirely and spoke directly to something deeper. The engine took Jake's simple lullaby and transformed it into something that sounded like hope crystallized into music. When the last note faded, nobody moved. Dr. Farnsworth broke the silence, her voice shaky. Well, that was... Extraordinaire, Vex finished quietly. His mandibles had stopped clicking for the first time in months. Mr. Murphy, what did you just do? Jake opened his eyes, slightly embarrassed. My grandmother used to sing that. I just thought maybe, I don't know, maybe she was tired. The engine, maybe she just wanted someone to be nice to her. Kip was frantically checking his instruments, glowing so bright he'd achieved portable sun status. The quantum resonance patterns, they're matching. No, not just matching, they're dancing. I've never seen data like this. It's as if the engine's base frequency was designed to complement human vocal patterns. Dr. Farnsworth pulled up a holographic display. The engine was grown using quantum crystalline matrices. Its creators, the Veldari, went extinct 3,000 years ago. But look at this. She highlighted a section of data. Their biological neural frequencies operated in the same range as human musical tones. They were singers. Jake the Veldari communicated through melody, and apparently, so do you. I just hum while I work, Jake protested. You just hummed your way into the most exclusive job in the galaxy, Vex said. He still looked like he couldn't believe what he was saying. Mr. Murphy, against every instinct I have, against all logic and reason, I'm recommending you as the Starlight engine's pilot, but I don't know how to fly this thing. Neither did anyone else. But you're the only one she likes. Vex stood, straightened his uniform, and looked Jake dead in the eye. The engine chose you. Now we find out why. In the observation deck, 17 ambassadors tried to process what they'd just witnessed. In his chair, Jake tried to process that his life had just taken the weirdest possible turn. And in her containment field, the Starlight engine hummed contentedly, finally finding someone who understood. The Coalition's official training manual for Starlight engine pilots was 4,000 pages long, covered 347 emergency scenarios, and was, according to Jake, about as useful as a chocolate teapot. You need to memorize the protocol sequences, Kip insisted, holding up a datapad that displayed page 1 of section 1 of chapter 1. There are procedures, safety standards. The manual exists for a reason. Does the manual have a section on what to do when your ship's engine only works if you hum at it? Jake asked. Kip's glow flickered. Well, no, but then I'm going to keep doing what works. Jake turned back to the engine. Morning, Stella, sleep well. The engine pulsed in what was clearly a positive response. Jake had started calling her Stella after the third day when she refused to activate for anyone else. Commander Vex had suggested maintaining professional designation protocols. Jake had ignored him, and Stella seemed to approve. What followed was the most unconventional training program in military history. Distinguished pilots with decades of experience would enter the cockpit, run through their perfect pre-flight procedures, and Stella would remain completely inert. Then Jake would stick his head in, hum a few bars of whatever song was stuck in his head, and she'd light up like someone had given her good news. Captain Thorne, a Zalaxian with 40 years of combat experience and enough medals to open a museum, lasted 3 minutes before Stella played a sound that the translators rendered as next contestant. Please. Jake hummed Blue Moon Bay and Stella practically purred. This is humiliating, Captain Thorne muttered as he stalked past Jake. Hey, it's a really good playlist, Jake called after him. Dr. Farnsworth was having the time of her life. She'd set up monitoring equipment to record every interaction, taking notes with the enthusiasm of a scientist who'd just discovered a new particle. Fascinating, she murmured, watching Jake explain to Stella how his week had been going while running diagnostic checks. He's not treating her like a machine at all. He's having a conversation. Is that scientifically significant? Vex asked, though he'd started to sound less skeptical and more resigned. Commander, we've spent centuries treating sentient machines as tools. Advanced tools, yes, but tools nonetheless. Jake's the first person who's approached Stella as if she's a person, and she's responding to it. On the training floor, Jake was telling Stella about the sandwich he'd had for lunch, and then Kip told me it wasn't actually cheese. It was compressed Blavian fungus, which explains why it tasted like regret. You ever have one of those days where you just want actual cheese? I miss cheese. Earth cheese. The real stuff. Stella played a sympathetic melody. Right, you get it. Anyway, should we try that barrel roll thing they want us to practice? They nailed the barrel roll on the first try. Captain Thorne, watching from the observation deck, looked like he needed to sit down. The breakthrough came during week 3. The engineering team had been trying to solve a power distribution problem for months. Something about quantum field alignment and energy matrices that made Jake's brain hurt just thinking about it. But during a routine flight, Stella started playing an unusual pattern. "Hey, Dr. Farnsworth." Jake called over the comm. "Stella's doing something weird. Sounds like she's trying to tell me something. Can you replicate it?" Jake hummed back the pattern. Stella responded with a variation. Back and forth they went, like a musical conversation, until suddenly Jake laughed. "Oh, she's saying the power coupling on deck 7 is in the wrong position. It's messing up her flow. She wants it moved to the port side." Silence. "Mr. Murphy," Vex said slowly, "are you telling me you just diagnosed an engineering problem through interpretive humming? I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds weird. They moved the power coupling. The energy distribution smoothed out perfectly." 3 engineers quit on the spot, citing philosophical differences with the nature of reality. Kip started carrying around a notebook, frantically documenting what he called the human-engine bonding process. Most of his notes consisted of entries like 1400 hours. Jake ate a sandwich, told Stella a joke about Glorbian mating rituals, executed perfect combat maneuver. Correlation unclear. Recommend further study of human sandwich consumption. By week 4, Stella had learned 15 Earth songs and would play them back at the most inappropriate moments. During a formal inspection by Coalition Admiral Crix, she interrupted his speech by playing Don't Stop Believing at full volume. Jake couldn't stop laughing for 20 minutes. Vex considered retiring early. "She has a sense of humor," Dr. Farnsworth noted. Delighted. "She has terrible timing," Vex corrected. "She has opinions," Jake added, grinning. "And I think she's decided the Admiral is boring." "Mr. Murphy, you cannot let the engine insult superior officers." "Commander, I'm not letting her do anything. We're partners. She does what she wants. I just, ... encourage her to maybe do it in ways that won't get us court-martialed." Despite the chaos, the data didn't lie. Jake and Stella's compatibility scores were unprecedented. Their flight precision exceeded every standard. And most importantly, Stella was happy. For the first time since her creation, the engine seemed content. Vex watched Jake in the cockpit, chatting with Stella about Earth music history while simultaneously executing maneuvers that would have been impossible for any other pilot, and finally admitted what he'd been avoiding for weeks. "We've been thinking about this wrong for centuries," he said to Dr. Farnsworth. "We thought sentient machines needed the best pilots, the most qualified, the most experienced. But maybe what they actually need is something simpler." "What's that?" "A friend." The distress call came through at 0400 hours, which Jake knew because he was awake, humming Midnight Runner while Stella harmonized, and they practiced what Kip called unnecessarily complicated spiral patterns and Jake called fun. "All stations. Code Black emergency." Vex's voice cut through the comm with an edge Jake had never heard before. "Colony transport Perseus is caught in a collapsing wormhole at Sector 947. 2,000 civilians on board. They have maybe 90 minutes before structural collapse." Jake felt his stomach drop. "Can't the rescue fleet too far out? We'd need something that can cross 3 sectors in under an hour, navigate gravitational shear that would tear apart a standard ship, and execute a precision extraction from an actively disintegrating space-time anomaly." Vex paused. "We need Stella. We need you." The ready room filled within minutes. Every qualified rescue pilot in the station volunteered. Captain Thorne, Commander Zellick, Lieutenant Prin, all of them experienced, trained for exactly this type of scenario, ready to die trying if it meant saving those people. Stella rejected all of them, not gently, not ambiguously. She shut down her systems entirely when anyone but Jake approached, and played a sound that Dr. Farnsworth translated as absolutely not. "Override her," someone suggested. "This is an emergency. We can't let a machine choose who." "She's not a machine," Jake interrupted, surprised by how angry he felt. "And you can't override her. Believe me, you've tried." Vex stood at the head of the table, looking older than Jake had ever seen him. "Mr. Murphy, Jake, you have no combat training, no emergency extraction experience. This is the kind of mission that kills experienced pilots. I can't order you to go." Jake looked around the room, at Kip, glowing bright enough to light the entire station, at Dr. Farnsworth, who for once wasn't smiling, at all the pilots who were qualified for this, who should be doing this instead of him. 2,000 people, he said quietly. 2,000, Vex confirmed. "And if you go, there's a very high probability you won't come back." Jake thought about his 3 rules for a good life. Keep your head down, don't volunteer for anything, never work day shift. Simple rules, safe rules. The kind of rules that kept you alive and comfortable and absolutely uninvolved in anything resembling danger. He thought about his grandmother, singing him lullabies about stars and flying and being brave even when you were scared. He thought about Stella, who'd chosen him for reasons he still didn't fully understand, who'd become something like a friend, who trusted him. Well, Jake said, standing up. Looks like I'm breaking all my rules today. Let's go save some people. Vex did something remarkable then. He stood, came to attention, and saluted, not to a superior officer, to Jake. Good luck, pilot. The approach to Sector 947 was like flying into a blender made of space-time. The collapsing wormhole twisted reality into shapes that hurt to look at. Gravity waves strong enough to feel even inside Stella's shielding. Jake's instruments screamed warnings. His hands shook on the controls. He started humming, quiet at first, then louder, a song his grandmother taught him. A song about being brave. Stella sang back, and her voice was steady. Okay, girl, Jake whispered. They said this was impossible, so let's do it anyway. They dove into the chaos. Later, when people asked Jake to describe the rescue, he'd say it was like parallel parking during an earthquake while someone threw asteroids at you and your GPS was having an existential crisis. Not helpful, but accurate. The Perseus loomed ahead, hull buckling, emergency lights failing. Jake could see faces in the windows. 2,000 people who'd woken up that morning expecting a normal day and instead got to stare at the end of everything. Stella, I need you to extend your shields around their ship. I know it's going to hurt. I know it's beyond your specs. But I also know you can do things that aren't supposed to be possible, because you've been doing them with me for weeks. Stella's response was complex. A melody that said, this is dangerous, and I'm scared, and I trust you all at once. Yeah, Jake said, his voice breaking. Me too. But we're going to get them out. Together. They executed a maneuver that would be studied for decades. Stella extended her containment field around the Perseus, pushing beyond every limitation her designers thought she had. Jake flew through gravitational shears that should have torn them apart. Following instinct and Stella's guidance more than any instrument, when the wormhole collapsed entirely, they were 3 seconds ahead of the cascading destruction, riding the shockwave like a surfer catching the perfect wave. Kip, monitoring from the station, was glowing so bright he'd become a navigation hazard. They limped back to Artemis Station with hull damage, overloaded power systems, and 2,000 very grateful, very confused, civilians. Jake's hands didn't stop shaking until an hour after they'd docked. Vex met them in the bay. He looked at Jake, looked at Stella, and just shook his head. That was the most reckless, improvised, technically impossible thing I've ever witnessed. Are you going to court-martial me? I'm going to recommend you for the Coalition Star of Valor, you absolute maniac. Dr. Farnsworth ran up, laughing and crying simultaneously. You did it. You actually did it. The physics alone, Jake. You broke 7 laws of thermodynamics. Pretty sure there are only 3 laws of thermodynamics, Jake mumbled. You broke some extras. I don't know how. It's fantastic. Stella played a tired but triumphant melody. Jake patted her console affectionately. That's my girl. You did good. Get some rest. You've earned it. In his notebook, Kip wrote, Human-engine bond allows for redefinition of possibility. Recommend cessation of all previous assumptions about limitations. Also recommend therapy for trauma-induced bioluminescence. 3 months later, the Galactic Coalition officially rewrote their pilot qualification standards. The new manual was considerably shorter and included a section titled, Compatibility over Credentials. Why Sentient Machines Pick Their Own Crew. Commander Vex got promoted to Admiral. He accepted the rank with grace and immediately filed paperwork to never work with humans again. The request was denied. Humans, it turned out, were becoming a very hot commodity. Jake Murphy, former janitor, became the official pilot of the Starlight engine with a contract that specified reasonable working hours, continued access to his Earth music collection, and a stipulation that Kip would serve as his permanent co-pilot. Kip had mixed feelings about this but appreciated that Jake kept a supply of anti-anxiety medication designed for Flibians in the cockpit. Dr. Farnsworth published her research paper, Harmonics and Humanity, Why Sentient Technology Prefers Friends Over Operators, and won about 17 scientific awards. She spent the prize money on coffee and more monitoring equipment. The Perseus survivors started a support group and collectively sent Jake a fruit basket the size of a small spacecraft. He shared it with Stella, who couldn't eat but appreciated the gesture, and played "Thank You for Being a Friend" for 3 days straight until Jake begged her to learn a new song. Everything was going surprisingly well, until the call came from Coalition headquarters. "Admiral Vex," the High Chancellor said, her 3 eyes blinking in sequence. "We have a situation. 3 more Starlight engines have been discovered in a derelict station at the edge of the Andromeda sector. We've sent our best pilots." "Let me guess," Vex said tiredly. "The engines refused them. All of them. But Admiral, when we tried something unconventional, when we had one of our junior technicians, a human, hum near them, all 3 engines activated simultaneously." Vex was silent for a long moment. Then he started laughing. The kind of laugh that suggested he'd achieved enlightenment through sheer absurdity. "Admiral, do you know what this means, Chancellor? It means the universe has a sense of humor. It means the most advanced technology we've ever discovered was designed to work with the one species we thought was too primitive to matter. It means everything we assumed about qualifications and expertise and proper procedures was wrong. So what do? We recruit humans, lots of humans, preferably ones who like to sing. The recruitment campaign started the next week. Join the Coalition space fleet. Experience required. None must enjoy music. Bonus points for humming. Applications flooded in from Earth. Janitors, musicians, shower singers, people who hummed while cooking, a guy who did beatboxing on street corners, and one woman who played the theremin. The Coalition's traditional military recruiters had no idea what to do with them. Jake found himself training the new recruits, which was hilarious because 6 months ago he'd been mopping floors. Now he was showing a former plumber named Rick how to communicate with a sentient engine through what Rick called cosmic karaoke. "It's not about hitting the right notes," Jake explained while Stella provided backup harmonics. "It's about treating them like people, like friends. These engines have been alone for thousands of years. They don't want a pilot, they want companionship." "So I should just talk to mine?" Rick asked. "Talk, sing, tell jokes, whatever feels natural. They respond to authenticity. If you're faking it, they'll know." Rick approached his assigned engine, which the Coalition had designated Engine 477, but Rick immediately named Beatrice. He started humming something that sounded suspiciously like Sweet Caroline. Beatrice lit up like sunrise. "Well, I'll be damned," Rick said. "She likes Neil Diamond." By month's end, all 3 new engines had bonded with human pilots. A pattern emerged. The engines didn't just respond to any human. They responded to humans who treated machines with respect, who talked to their cars, who thanked their computers, who saw consciousness as something to be honored rather than exploited. Turns out humans, with their weird habit of anthropomorphizing everything and treating objects like friends, were the only species in the galaxy who instinctively understood how to work with sentient technology. The Coalition's Xenopsychology department had a collective breakdown trying to explain it. Dr. Farnsworth just shrugged and said, "Humans are lonely creatures. We bond with anything that seems even slightly alive. Cats, dogs, houseplants, Roomba vacuums, and apparently ancient star engines. It's our superpower." On a Tuesday afternoon that would have been unremarkable except for being remarkably normal. Jake sat in Stella's cockpit running pre-flight checks for a routine patrol. Kip was reviewing navigation data while gradually glowing less, which meant therapy was working. Through the view screen, Earth hung in the distance, blue and green and home. "You know what's weird, Stella?" Jake said, humming the melody to Stardust Memories, the song that started everything. 6 months ago I was a janitor who just wanted a quiet life. Now I'm out here flying through space with a sentient engine who has opinions about my lunch choices." Stella played back an amused harmony. "Yeah, I know. Universe has a weird sense of humor, but honestly," he smiled, running his hand across her console, "I wouldn't change it, even the scary parts. Even the parts where I thought we were going to die. Because you chose me, and I still don't know why, but I'm glad you did." Stella's response was warm and complex. A melody that conveyed friendship, trust, belonging. "Admiral Vex is looking at us," Kip observed from the co-pilot seat. "He appears to be muttering something." Through the observation window, Vex stood with his arms crossed, watching Jake chat with Stella while simultaneously executing a perfect departure sequence. He was indeed muttering. "The universe," he said to no one in particular, "has a terrible sense of humor. But I suppose if we were going to explore the cosmos with singing janitors and sentient engines who have strong feelings about sandwich choices, we could do worse." Dr. Farnsworth appeared beside him with her ever-present coffee. "Admit it, Commander. You like them." "I will do no such thing. You recommended Jake for the Coalition Star of Valor, an aberration, temporary insanity." Don't read into it. You've started humming when you think no one's listening. Vex's mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. That is classified information, and I'll deny it if asked. In the cockpit, Jake finished his pre-flight checks. Ready for patrol, Stella. She played an enthusiastic affirmative. Kip, you doing okay? Not too glory. I have achieved acceptable levels of bioluminescence. Yes, though I've been meaning to ask, what is a Neil Diamond and why does Engine Beatrice require Rick to play his music before every flight? Long story. Remind me to give you the history of Earth music. It'll help with the new recruits. They launched smoothly, Stella singing as they went, Jake humming along. Behind them, the Coalition station buzzed with activity. Human recruits learning to bond with ancient engines. Scientists rewriting everything they thought they knew about machine consciousness. Military officers reluctantly accepting that sometimes the best person for the job is the one who brings a playlist. As they cleared the station and headed into open space, Jake looked out at the stars and grinned. You know what, Stella? I think we're gonna be just fine. Stella's response echoed through the ship, a melody of agreement, hope, and the promise of adventures yet to come. In the cosmic dark, two souls who shouldn't have fit together at all proved that sometimes the universe knows exactly what it is doing, even if it takes a humming janitor to figure it out.